Welcome to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy. We're back on a Wednesday talking about the Mask of Zorro. Tune in every week. We'll see you in 1 second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movie. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Oh my god, there was so many sounds happening at once. I was
God.
like, there's the soar, there's the song. And in reality, I've just had that song playing in my head from when they tango.
Yes.
For the last
Since
week.
you were actually 8.
Since I was 8. I'm so excited today.
You should be sitting here. I don't know
That
why.
was a very good accent.
It was Puss in Boots, man.
It was.
I am a cat.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. Welcome back. It's another Wednesday afternoon. Haven't said that in about a year and a half.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
We're here. We're doing Action Movie Anatomy. We talk action movies on this show, and today we're talking The Mask of Zorro. We have been talking about doing this movie for years and years and years and years, and it's one of your favorite movies of all time. Do you think this is in your top 50 all time?
Oh, God, definitely. After watching it again,
Top 30?
I don't know. It's tough because, there's a lot of stuff, we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
We never try to talk too much about the movies before coming on the show, but there is a good amount of stuff about this movie that if I hadn't have watched it as a kid, I'd probably feel about how you do about it, which I think is still pretty good.
awesome. It's
Right.
pretty awesome.
But like when I watch it, I'm just in. I'm like a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old again. Like I love it so much and it makes me feel all the nostalgia.
Wasn't there a movie just recently, though, it was exactly the opposite that we talked about, that I said this movie makes me feel 8, and you were like...
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, not in a good way, but I was like, no, in a good way.
Yeah, what was that?
We just did that. Whatever movie that was on the show, it was literally like something that I don't think it was Pearl Harbor. It might have been.
Might have been. I'll look at it. I'll look at the list. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to cover this. I'm actually almost a little bit bummed. You even said it. You're like, should we just wait for your mom to be here to cover it?
I
Because
know.
my mother loves this movie. But I just didn't want to wait. I was just too excited.
It's fair. It's a totally fair point. So, guys, this is the Popcorn Talk Network. We talk action movies on this show, Action Movie Anatomy. Those action movies adhere to 4 basic rules. Rule number 1, the hero is always playing by their own rules. I don't have the outline in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I could have sworn I printed it. I could have sworn I printed it, Ryan.
It's cool. You have it on your iPad.
I do.
Yeah, good. The hero always plays by their own rules. And as soon as... So is the hero just the character Zorro? It is?
That's a good question.
Or is the hero just like good people? Because it's like the 3 of them.
I think the hero is Zorro.
Right.
No, I think it's Antonio. I think it is.
It's not Anthony Hopkins?
I don't think it's Anthony Hopkins because I think Anthony Hopkins has this moment where he's kind of because at the very end of the movie he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to
take my daughter and leave.
So maybe it's a combination of the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the combination because they both bring each other back from the depths.
Well, it's also like, it's like the classic hero's journey. It's like he starts as less than Anthony Hopkins. He learns, and in the end, he is greater than Anthony Hopkins. Right?
Exactly.
Because that's like
Yes.
the point. That's supposed to be the whole idea. Like Blade and Whistler.
Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, I've been drinking for years, Blade. Here's your blood. Go be better than me. Where's my beer? That was John Roca.
That sounds like John.
No, but I think the hero is Zorro. I think that's a fair point. Rule number 2: the hero and the villain are always the smartest people, beings, things, dinosaurs, what have you in the room. So, Zorro, the character, is for sure, no question. He's a superhero in that way. Now, on the other side, right? On the other side,
The bad guy.
is Don Raphael, or is it basically Jason Isaacs and the Patriot? Like,
Yeah.
your
The
standard bad guy army
yes.
who wants to kill everything good.
I think it's truly Don Raphael.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's the reason why the wife is dead. He steals his daughter from him, like, as an infant.
He's a politician. He's a great swordsman.
He's like Two-Face. He's trying to buy someone's land with a bunch of gold that they own with a bunch of slave labor.
But he gets fofooled. He does get fooled.
What do you mean?
He
you mean because he's not this...
he doesn't catch that he is Zorro. Like,
Yeah.
He doesn't even catch that. He's not even quick enough to catch the fact that Anthony Hopkins is in the prison when he goes and looks at him.
So, yeah, that's a good point. So I think it's a 2. I think it's the same thing. I think it's the 2 and the 2. Yeah, because the captain does know that he doesn't. He says whether you're Morietta's brother or not, you are someone that is trying to appear as more than they are.
Yeah, so I have questions about that. We're going to get there.
Murietta.
Rule number 3, the movie is driven by police, military, political, or mercenary figure.
I'm surprised Vigilante's not on there. right? Because Batman's a vigilante.
It's because when we wrote the rules, we didn't do superhero movies.
That's true. That's true.
Swore we wouldn't.
And this is actually a comic book movie.
It's a comic book
Yeah,
movie.
it really is.
Big shout to almost the singles champion, William Bibbiani, who is big
And
shout to-
almost the team's champion, William Bibbiani.
No, but our friend William Bibbiani, who I actually went on his show and we talked about top comic book movies of all time. I think it was critically acclaimed. It was one of the shows that Bibbs does. I can't remember which one it was. I guessed it on about 6 months ago.
I think the show's called Almost.
And when we were counting down our top comic book movies of all time, we got down to number 2. His second favorite comic book movie ever is this movie.
I remember you telling me this, and I was so excited to
I
hear
remembered
that.
last night at like midnight, and we were texting. I was like, should we invite him? It's like it's 12 hours from now. That is the least professional thing we would have ever done in our life.
We don't like doing that.
No.
But yeah, I was actually really, really happy to hear that when you told me that he loved this movie that much. I didn't actually know people loved this movie. Like, most people don't. Like, we actually just talked to Kevin, who is the owner of this show, the owner of this studio. And Kev loves these type of movies. You even said, you're like, Count of Monte Cristo is one of your favorite movies of all time. You've got to love this movie, right? And he hadn't even seen it.
And we've Action Industries, which is our Twitter, and we'll get to social plugs in a second here, posted a poll this morning about your favorite swashbuckling movie.
Yeah.
Some of the options were The Three Musketeers, this.
What does swashbuckling mean? Is that just sword fighting?
I think it's like swinging around on ropes, swords, guns.
Okay.
It's kind of like adventure movie.
Okay.
I think ish. Pirates.
I thought boats had to be involved for that for some reason.
Well, I think it's pirates, or it's characters that wear those big leather boots with the floppy tops.
If those boots are in the movie, it is a swashbuckling
Andrew
film.
and I are both wearing those boots. You just can't see it. We wore
are.
them to the studio. No, but and people were responding, like they were like excited about the topic. I saw a bunch of different Schmodown competitors responding. So anyway, that's rule number 3. Rule number 4: the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion, exploding mines of gold.
That explosion at the end feels like they set it up.
Yeah.
And they only had a one and done. And then they blew it up. And they're like, "Holy shit, this is too big."
Yeah.
It was gigantic.
Massive.
It would have killed every single person within like a 5-mile radius. And then they walk out.
And they walk out of the smoke
holding a baby.
Both with children.
Yes. Yes.
he's got
and they're actually their
and
kids.
She's got a kid. It's amazing.
Happened quick.
So anyway, guys, those are the rules of action movie anatomy. So we're going to continue kind of on through the show, but a couple quick shout outs for everybody here who's watching, who's listening. We're back here on Wednesdays. You guys, or you know that if you're watching live. We did this show for years on Wednesdays. We were doing it for Monday for about a year and a half. We're back to Wednesdays here at 1 o'clock, so stay tuned for that. If you want to follow along with anything that we are doing, you can obviously follow along with Popcorn Talk every single week. They have tons of streaming shows, great stuff. Hit that subscribe button. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Ben Bateman Media, Instagram the same.
Yeah, and you guys can find me at Andrew Guy. You can find the show at Team Action Show. And we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Team Action. It's amazing. We have so many people supporting there, including 2 brand new members, Simon Brouillard. And that's a sweet name.
Is he a villain in a Die Hard movie?
It's a sick name. Simon Brouillard. And Louisa Gundel, or Gundel.
Will you say it in Banderas' voice?
Simon Brouillard? No, that's like
That's what the guy from
Eugene Levy.
Oh,
yeah, that's also
you may recognize me as the villain in a great number of action movies.
But yeah, so thank you guys so much for being patrons. Big salute to you guys. And if you guys want to become patrons, check us out. Patreon.com/Team Action, where we actually just had a post up yesterday because we have an Anchor channel now.
Yeah, well, so I had a show on Anchor for like 2 years.
You did?
Nobody
Yeah.
knows what Anchor is.
No.
So, but the cool thing about Anchor, if you guys are wondering, you're like, I don't want to hear about this again. Anchor has changed their platform. So you can actually record and create podcasts on Anchor, which is amazing. But correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan, we're hosted through Anchor. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, this is on Anchor too. This is great.
AfterBuzz is all hosted through Anchor. So it's a podcast hosting platform is the most important and the coolest thing that Anchor is doing. So when you say we're on Anchor, what that actually means is you can listen to The Action Guys, our new show, on Spotify, on iTunes. You can go download it on Stitcher, where it pushes it out to all the different audio platforms. That's the coolest function of Anchor. So not only do we have the app, but you guys can listen to our brand new show we're doing once a week, The Action Guys, which we're going to get into a little later in the show. We're going to talk about it. But yeah, we're there where we have a podcast feed now. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and if you don't want to look at our faces for this show, you can also go and find this on Spotify and on Anchor as well. So really excited about that. And let's see, any other shout outs we want to do before we get into the show?
Any other quick shout outs we want to do? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think we just get into it.
I thought you were being coy. I thought you had one. So coming up today on the show, we are going to be talking about all your favorite segments, guys. We're going to be talking about thesis statement, fist pump moment. We're going to be talking career defining role, Antonio Banderas. We're going to ask the question: is Zorro his career-defining role, or is it Puss in Boots?
Puss in Boots.
I can't wait to ask that question, but we're going to start the show off with the very first thing we do every single week, and that is thesis statements. So this is your biggest, boldest thought about the film. When the movie comes up in conversation, you say to everybody, you know what? Here's the thing about the Mask of Zorro. Not the Legend of Zorro. Not Zorro the Gay Blade.
Right.
The Mask of Zorro.
The Mask of Zorro.
Here's the thing about it. Here's the best, the worst, the only, the first, the last, the greatest. It should never just be like, I think Catherine Zeta-Jones is beautiful in this film.
Yeah, she fights good with that sharp thing.
You want it to be something strong you can hold on to. And it can be anything. It can be anything you want. And I think you have a sweet one.
I do.
So
I do have a good... I had a few. I wanted to say it was the most underrated action movie from the 90s, but I decided to just go with a hard and fast. This is the sexiest action movie of all time.
Sweet.
It just is. Is it the most romantic? Absolutely not. Is it the sexiest? Oh my God, yes it is. Because Anthony Hopkins, I'm just joking, because Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, first of all, they're both beautiful to look at in this movie. They are both, he is so handsome and she is the most stunning, like almost ever. But, what I will say is that the sword fighting scene they have with one another,
Yeah.
and the tango scene that they have with one another, they're so sexy. It just is, and it's not like sexy in like a way that makes you kind of feel uncomfortable. Because like if you go and you watch like the Thomas Crown Affair or Desperado,
Yeah.
there's some pretty intense sex scenes in those movies, and like you could call that sexy,
Yeah.
But it's like almost a little bit too much. Whereas like this, hey Jeff Graham, what's up,
Love
man?
that.
Thank you so much. Nope, you're the best because we're bad at our jobs and we did not print these out.
See what they're on the screen?
I do see that. These are.
This is the rundown for Joker.
Ryan, I could have sworn I emailed you the correct rundown.
I could have sworn we were doing the Mask of Zorro, but
Guys, we have Joker outlines here. So Todd Phillips actually. But anyway, so when it comes to this movie, when I watched it, it's like that fun kind of sexy. It's like you watch it and it's just, they're beautiful to look at. It's lit in a way. It almost feels like it's lit like a telenovela, but then their chemistry is actually really there. So even though it's not romantic, like super, super romantic, it is romantic, but it's not like a true romance film. It's definitely an action movie with this layer of it. When I watch it, it's just fun. And they're amazing to watch. And that dance scene, that thing locks it in for me.
the tango.
It is so incredible.
It's sexy.
It's very, I wish I could dance like that.
I mean, who doesn't? There's a reason that Antonio Banderas. Fact check me on this. Ryan, did he ever win Sexiest Man Alive? People, I feel like he probably did.
And also, did Todd Phillips direct this movie?
I feel like there's a good chance that Antonio Banderas, somewhere between 1998
he
and
had to
2004. Usually I have lists like this memorized, but I don't have this one memorized.
He did win.
He did. I knew it.
Of course he did.
I'm pulling up the year right now. It's 2002.
Yes,
We should play a game every week on the show. Guess. Did
Guess
they or did
what?
they not win People's Sexiest Man Alive at some point?
And I feel like every time it's just yes.
Yeah, it's yes.
It's almost always yes.
I mean, his sex appeal is outstanding.
It's incredible.
It's unreal.
It's almost Patrick Swayze good.
Nobody is Patrick Swayze good. He won in 1990.
Oh, you know what? The other movie that probably makes me feel this way, and someone just said it in the chat, I do love the original Three Musketeers with Chris O'Donnell, Kiefer, and Tim Curry.
And Oliver Platt, right?
Yep, and Rebecca De Mornay.
De Mornay, yes.
And that one guy who talks like this, and he's bad. He's the bad guy in the
yeah,
Crow.
Michael. We're almost there.
We're so close.
No, we can get this.
Michael Hightower.
He always plays characters where he wears big flowing white shirts with tight cuffs.
God, he's wonderful. He should have been in this movie.
Wincott.
God damn it!
You're fired, Ryan. We can't do
Samsonite.
that. Please don't cancel our show, Ryan.
Way off.
Yes. God, Michael Wincott's so good.
Yeah, so good. Okay, I'm gonna say, and this is tough because I was trying to distill this down to like this was the greatest, and I just can't settle if this is 100% like the greatest. So I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
Anthony Hopkins is a top 3 superhero mentor character ever. So like this includes Jor-El, this includes like, Liam Neeson in Batman Begins.
It's like Jor-El?
Yeah.
Who's he?
Like we're talking fathers, mentors, anything.
Yep,
Like the
yep.
I'm gonna teach you.
So over Richard Harrison in Monte Cristo.
It's like I'm so tempted to say just the greatest because he's so magnetic in the role. He's so
good.
perfect.
He's white.
Yeah.
And he's playing a Mexican. Okay, like let's just call it what it is. And I'm so okay with it.
Hollywood went backwards 50 years with this movie.
They really did, but they were like, but it's Anthony Hopkins.
It's Anthony Hopkins.
And Antonio Banderas was like,
Okay.
No problem.
He's so wonderful and he's so likable. It's a little unbelievable at the beginning of the movie that he's actually Zorro. And he's jumping around, but they put the makeup on him and they make him like kind of younger, and he does immediately admit that he's getting too old for this shit.
Yes.
And he retires.
Here we go. Take two.
Do we have the real outline coming?
This time, Jeff Graham's back.
Is this Legally Blonde too? Is that right?
Nope, still Joker.
Nope, still Joker.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. So sorry. So keep going.
And he's just it's a little unbelievable, but as soon as he starts teaching him when they're like in the lair, and he's like, this is your circle.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
The deeper, closer.
And he's sitting there drinking wine, and like it's just like I think the thing about this movie I love so much and why he's so enjoyable is that anytime you enter the world of family friendly with a movie, like you want a family friendly movie that's going to appeal to kids and adults. It has to be exciting. It has to be engaging. Your characters need to be memorable, which is why basically like all animated films cast like all Oscar winners because they know. And it's also another reason why you have superhero films. Often the villain is another Oscar winner. Like it's such an important piece of the puzzle. You need like your most real character to be a really talented actor. So when you're making this movie, you're kind of like, okay, so Antonio Banderas, he's up and coming. We like him. He's a hot young guy. Catherine Zeta-Jones, stunningly gorgeous. We think she's very talented. She doesn't have a great body of work yet, but like she's working on it. And now we're going to just cast Hannibal Lecter. Not only that, he was Hannibal Lecter, but he's going to be such a likable character for children.
Yes.
The families are going to watch the guy that ate people 7 years ago and won an Oscar for 18 minutes of screen time. And he's going to be reading a book with his feet on Banderas' back as he's doing push-ups
as he's like
over
sipping
candles.
wine. Yes.
And he's so likable. That's why I think like it's different than like Liam in Batman Begins, because like that's a much more down the middle type of role. Like it's so much easier to make that role good because it takes itself so seriously anyway.
Well, he's our General Hummel in this movie. He grounds this thing completely. And like, again, I understand Anthony Hopkins is a British man, but he does this actually well enough, in my opinion. And it's the 90s, so you got to give it a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that would never happen today, and he would probably never take the role now, but he's so endearing. And the moments that he has with Catherine Zeta-Jones when he's petting the horse, and when he has the real moments with Antonio Banderas, like, that's the shit that makes this movie good. It really is, because if this movie is just the action scenes and I'm not 12 years old anymore, this movie's not that great. Everything else about this movie, this is a great example of it's the things that happen in between the action to make us love a movie. And I have to clarify this because General Mac Ryan, freaking out in the chat.
5-star General.
Salute,
Mac
5-star. He thought that I didn't know who Jor-El was. I do know who Jor-El was. I thought you said Jor-El.
Mac hates everything.
I was like, is this from Friday? Is there a mentor on Friday? Like, I had no idea. So anyway, I'm glad I had to clear that up because, Superman.
So next up, we're gonna get to we're gonna get to career profiles. So starting with Joaquin Phoenix. Because of Joker.
Yeah, I got you.
I was expecting a better laugh.
Well, it's because at first the names were so close.
And also we're supposed to do a
fist bump.
First. Yeah.
That's what I was looking at.
Jumped the shark on the joke. I was so excited. All right, guys. Next up on the show, we got this thing called fist pump moment. It's something happens in the movie. You look around. You're like, are you seeing this right now? This is so awesome. Yes. It is fist pump, not fist bump.
Yep.
And you get hyped, and you call your buddy, turn this movie on. You got to see it. You had one of these actually the other night after watching Harriet.
I did. Dude, I actually had... Okay, so I go to this thing called the Dean's Movie Night. It's at my girlfriend's place where she's getting her doctorate, and they have this they do it once a month or once a quarter, and it's usually mainly like professors and students who are there watching a movie. And we watched Harriet the other night, and I will say there was probably maybe in the room maybe 5 people of that weren't white, and the rest of it was all white people. There's probably 30 people total.
Okay,
they were hooting and hollering and cheering and fist pumping during that movie. It was amazing. And there was a moment where Harriet Tubman, she's singing this song. It's like, let my people... Like, she sings it numerous times throughout the movie. This old-ass professor behind me sang along with it.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was one of the best movie experiences I've ever had in one of the most shocking places to have it.
So that's the Moses song.
Yeah. She sings it throughout the movie to like let slaves know that she's like in the woods.
That's pretty cool.
It's really cool, and she has an incredible voice.
Yeah.
I still want to do a review on this movie because I loved it so much, but I was just shocked by how much this room was fist pumping. Like I wanted to be like, that's the segment on my show.
I'm so disappointed that I missed that movie. There was like every once in a while in a line of like 4 or 5 invites, I'll have to miss one.
Right.
And I missed that one, and I'm like very disappointed I missed it, especially considering she got nominated for Best Actress for the role.
And I would totally be okay if she won.
Really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I haven't seen the other roles. But I'd be okay with what she did in that movie winning an Oscar.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Fist bump moment.
yeah. Did we say? Oh no, you were just talking.
Yeah, I was explaining what it is. I just was thinking about like, you call your buddy, and that's what you did.
Yes.
So yeah, there are moments in this movie that I think are definitely fist bump worthy. It's a kids movie, so I definitely think you have to work harder as that you were talking about our experiences of watching this movie. And this is where you watching the movie as having memories as a kid, I think it's easier to have a fist bump moment.
Yeah.
Harder watching it as an adult for the first time because a lot of those moments they still feel kind of watered down. But they're still there for me. Like, because you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting for him to face the army captain. So at the end, when the army captain's got his gun and his sword. And one of the suspension of disbelief things in this movie that happens throughout the movie is like, it's a comic book movie from the 90s in the sense that you're not really trying to ground it. You're not trying to explain how he would be able to best so many men and fight all these people at the same time, or why he's not cutting people's arms off, or why they're not just shooting him.
Yeah.
When there's like 100 guys with rifles and he's got one sword. Like, there's things you have to kind of jump past. So this is a great like nod to that, because the guy's standing there looking at him and he's got the gun and the sword, and he throws the gun down, and you're like, you're gonna die! You're gonna die by a sword! He's gonna do it! He's gonna do it! He chapped him, honey! And that for me was probably the one that I got the most hyped on.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for that all movie.
I wonder if there's ever been anyone in like a war, and this is kind of fucked up to say, but I want to try to add some levity to it. But like, let's say you're in a war and you come up in a moment like this,
Yeah.
and you're like, you've got a sword and he's got a sword, or your guy's like, one of you has a gun, and then you're like, all right, and you toss it aside and then just shoot you. Because it's like, that's what happens in movies. It doesn't, if you're in real life and you're gonna die, you figure if you have the advantage, you're gonna take it.
If Ryan Johnson was directing, that's what would happen.
yes, exactly. That's a great fist bump moment. I still love that. I thought that my fist pump moment was the fist pump moment when I was a kid, which
Yeah.
was the dual fighting sword
double
thing.
sword fight?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It only happens for like 10 seconds, and I must have rewound that like 100 times.
As a kid?
Yeah. But the other scene that I rewound as a kid is the tango scene.
Yeah.
There's the building music, the sexual tension, the incredible dancing, and the way that they do this awesome thing with looking at the reactions of the captain and the Dons and of Anthony Hopkins. And like, everyone's like rushing to see what's
Everybody's
happening.
like, holy shit.
Yes.
Those people are beautiful. I'm turned on right now.
Yes. And I was like, I had this huge smile on my face, and I watched it again, just like I did when I was a kid. And I was like, this is it. This is my fist pump. I thought it was going to be the barn, like the fight in the barn with him and Catherine Zeta, because it's amazing. And
Really good,
And I was like laughing out loud the whole time, and I rewound that as well. But that tango scene, man, it is just the greatest. Is absolutely the greatest. I have one here from Colby Marin in the chat. So Colby, thank you so much, and good to see you here in the chat again. He says, my fist pump is when Antonio pulls his sword out and swings it all around, all over the place, and is screaming, yelling, and then he's disarmed in one swipe by Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. Max says, I agree. That's the kind of stuff I want to ask you. How does that hit you as an adult? Because you're kind of just like, you know?
Well, okay, so like this is another thing, and I was sort of trying to separate. I was sort of trying to separate the two pieces of it, I guess, so I could dissect, what type of movie am I putting myself in line to enjoy here?
Right.
Because Count of Monte Cristo is not a kids movie. It's like it's PG-13 enough in the same way, but it's really not a kids movie. It's really like feels like more of a like a PG-13 movie. This feels very PG. This movie feels like Disney could make this today just like this, and it would be a huge hit. So it's actually in the beginning of the movie when Anthony Hopkins is jumping around and he's like kicking soldiers in the butt, and you know what I mean. Those are the moments. But the funny thing is, he's doing it, and you're watching the two kids watch.
Yes.
And you're like, that's sort of the point, is that he's supposed to be a hero for the people and for children and for everyone. He's not supposed to be a dangerous vigilante who's going to murder people. He's supposed to be, patient and kind and ruthless when he needs to be, like all the things that you would want a great hero to be.
Right. And I was reading a little bit about, the comic of Zorro, and that was a big part of his thing, was like he would make these people kind of look silly or foolish around him instead of just like murdering them. It was a different type of thing to accomplish, and that also I think comes with the time of when it was originally written.
Yeah, he's sort of a mischievous vigilante or something. Right? Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, and that's that. When you ask the question of like how do those scenes hit, I mean, levity. There's enough levity. There's not a lot of humor in this movie that plays to your highest intelligence. I find that was like
no.
Like a lot of that children's humor feels like it's for children, and it's less like
Yeah, because even the stuff that does like like the stuff that made me laugh, it still made me laugh partly because of nostalgia, and the other part was just like good timing. Like the moment that I think of is when Catherine Zeta-Jones just disarms him in the barn, and then he's like trying to find something to lean on, and he leans on it and then looks at it, and he's like kind of smiling awkwardly.
Yeah.
I was like, that's actually just him being a pretty good comedic actor in that moment. It's not that funny, but he pulls it off well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and those are the kind of things we talk about movie star charisma. He's got a lot of it in this movie.
Yes,
he really does. So we're going to continue moving on through the show, guys. We want to get to career profiles, star profiles. So we'll start with Antonio Banderas. So 1996, he does Evita, Too Much in 95, Never Talk to Strangers 1995. Now, unless I'm mistaken, Desperado is also 95.
Sounds right, or maybe maybe earlier, like before.
Could be.
But yeah, it's definitely right in the thick of all this.
Right before this. That's like sort of puts him on the map, you know, obviously.
Connor, so it says here in September 95, Robert Rodriguez, fresh from the success of Desperado. So maybe it was 94, 95.
Okay. So that's Banderas. So he's kind of up and coming. Yeah, 95 confirmed. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, nice.
Anthony Hopkins, prior to this, does a movie called Amistad, 1997. You've seen Amistad. The Edge, 1997.
Anybody, Charles?
And Surviving Picasso, 1995. I've never seen Surviving Picasso, but around this same time, he's doing Nixon and Remains of the Day. This is his post.
Did you watch Amistad recently? Or no?
Maybe. I turned it on, maybe, but I didn't finish it.
Yeah, I've never finished that movie either.
God, did I watch Amistad? I can remember like the opening scene, I think. Oh no, maybe not. Maybe I just watched the trailer and read about it for Schmodown. I can't remember, to be honest. I haven't seen the whole movie. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
And then Catherine Zeta-Jones, prior to this, she does The Phantom, 1996, Blue Juice, 1995, Splitting Heirs, 1993. So she's on her way up.
Billy Lane.
Yeah.
Billy Zane.
Billy Zane in The Phantom. I forgot that she was in The Phantom.
I did too.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
Billy Zane.
Wouldn't have pulled that one.
Cool dude.
It's a cool dude. Listen to your friend Billy Zane. Yeah, so it's an interesting cast. We talked about it already a little bit, just kind of like where these guys were in their careers. You needed Antonio Banderas to ground this movie. This movie, I believe, was pretty successful. With its actual performance at the box office.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But I mean, it had the right people and. I don't think anybody would argue after watching this movie that there are many actresses in the history of film that are more beautiful than her in this era
movie
of her career.
My mom still to this day, she's like, that is the most beautiful I've ever seen a woman look on screen ever.
Yeah, it's like pretty astounding. Like she's
almost distractingly pretty.
Yeah.
Like at the very end when they do that shot and she's like looking at him next to the crib, you're like, Jesus, that's just a modeling shoot. Like this is a weird, like that doesn't look like it's in a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. So it's a good cast on their way up. You want to talk production development, or you want?
I do, but I want to talk about Antonio Banderas first, really quickly, because we were talking about this on the way over, and you were telling me. We know the first time he's ever been nominated.
This year
is this year, and I've heard he's phenomenal in the movie. And when I go back and I watch this movie now as an adult, he's actually a pretty good actor in it. He really is. He does really well with what he has to. He's childish and playful when he needs to be, and he brings the seriousness and the heart. That scene when he's with Captain Love and he's like drinking the water out of his brother's like head jar.
Yeah.
It's gnarly, but like he does it very, very well, and his anger is there. What is his career-defining role? Because Pain and Glory is not it. It's too new.
So we're going to go back to the beginning really quickly, just so we can just to greatest hits, so people have a little bit of sense of the ones that would like really maybe, chart. And I think it really starts with Desperado. That's
the only one that I can think of would be, but the problem is that it feels like the Desperado trilogy is a thing.
No.
It doesn't feel like the character is the thing.
It's definitely not his career-defining role, but that's his first major movie. Then you have The Mask of Zorro in 1998. He keeps making stuff, he's in movies, but these movies aren't really standing out as big haymakers. And you start to get into the 2000s and it's like the most prominent role he's ever played that the most people saw was Puss in Boots.
It was. It really was.
That's the voice that the most people are aware of. That's the thing he does. And by the time you start to get into 2010, 2011, not only does he get his own movie, but you start to see what happens if you don't jump to that next level as a proper A-list leading man movie star. If you don't jump to the next level, what happens is you start being in a lot of these movies that he's in, which is he's great in a lot of them. I mean, I saw him in a film a year ago, I think, called Life Itself that he's in. It's a Dan Fogelman movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Pain and Glory, I just saw him in Doolittle.
Life Itself,
he's in a lot of stuff. It's like he's worked and he's a very prominent name. If you put him in a movie and you tell me, hey, there's a movie coming out. It's got, Ryan Gosling, and it's got, Margot Robbie, and it's got Antonio Banderas. It's like he fits right in.
Oh, easy. His name still fits in the A-list, even though he's definitely not that guy.
But if you start with Antonio Banderas instead of Ryan Gosling, and then it doesn't really sell as well.
Right.
And he never quite jumps. So the question is, where along the line did he actually have his career-defining role?
Well, so one thing I want to mention about this before we get into that is that it really feels like the biggest inhibitor to Antonio Banderas' career was that he was coming up in a time where we were only interested in leading white men or leading black men.
Yeah.
It really did seem that way.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
we had the Will Smiths, we had the Denzels, and then we had everyone else that was white. But the thing is there weren't a lot of Hispanic Americans or like this people like me where you can play a bunch of different roles,
Sure.
different ethnicities, being the leads in feature films. And Antonio Banderas not making it through to that A-list level, it feels like it has to have been kind of that racism. I hate to say it, but it really feels like it because he had it. He had the looks, sexiest man alive. He had the talent.
Yeah.
He was booking the jobs. People like working with him, like the whole thing. Unless there's something that I'm just missing, I can't put my finger on it.
Well, it's weird too, because you look at Zorro and the movie did well financially. We're going to talk about it in a second, but like that's 1998. So there should have been, the proof was there for him to be the guy, the leading guy in movies. It's like, and it also makes you wonder, you look at Wesley Snipes as a guy, you were just talking about Will Smith and you were talking about Denzel.
Right. He
Snipes,
was a lead.
He made
Big.
Blade the same year as this, right? Blade comes out in 98, does pretty well, right? So he's a black superhero. He makes Blade 2 4 years later. Then he makes Blade 3. So he stuck with that character. He did.
And Blade is, and Wesley Snipes is an exponentially worse actor than Antonio Banderas.
Speak for you.
I mean, have you seen movies?
But the point is, he was able to ride that character to a pretty solid career as a very rich producer. He did very well for himself. You wonder, like, what if instead of waiting, because when does Legend of Zorro come out? I want to say they waited
I think
too
it's
long.
like 3 years later. Or no, it's like 2000.
I think it's like 6 years later. I was going to say it's like 2004.
It's like 2004 or 5.
That feels like they waited.
Or 2003? It's 3.
Could be 2003.
I don't know.
My guess would be 2004, but it's at least 5 years later. I'm pretty sure, unless
Right.
Ryan, can you confirm?
2005.
2005.
Yeah, wow.
7 years later, they waited 7 years to make the sequel to this movie,
And I haven't seen it. And I love this movie.
and I've heard it's bad.
Yep.
And I think if you really are honest with yourself, the biggest thing that hurt his career is that he did not make the sequel to this movie 2 years later.
Yeah.
Because The Mummy Returns came out 2 years later, and it was a big deal, and people love that franchise. If this had the sequel come out, say 3 years after the first one, I actually think this is so clearly his career-defining role, and I think his career goes in a different direction.
Yeah, but instead, really quickly, I want to shout this out because Josh Ryan just popped in the chat and he's going to be heading out really soon. He's going to go back to work. The $25 donation. Thank you so much for that $25 super chat, Josh. You are amazing. Even though you don't like Step Brothers, I won't hold it against you. I'm so happy that this movie is covered on the show. Keep up the great work, gents. Next one on AMA wishlist is 310 to Yuma. Hashtag Action Army. Hashtag We the North. Big time salute to you, Josh. Always good to see you.
Salute,
in
Josh.
the chat.
Thank you so much.
We both actually like 310 to Yuma. I can see that getting covered one day. I don't know how soon it'll be covered, but
and also just a big thank you from Popcorn Talk. I mean, on behalf of Popcorn Talk, any super chat donation that comes in on this show goes to the studio, and I know as a studio that puts an enormous amount of investment in its talent and its shows and developing, we're very appreciative to have anybody support the network. So
yeah,
thank you so much
every
for that.
little bit helps. So, I guess his career-defining role is Puss in Boots for me.
It does feel that way, which is so bizarre.
It's so because it's not even him and he's beautiful.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like split decision. Ryan, what do you think when you think about Antonio Banderas?
It's so funny because when I grew up with Antonio Banderas, it was Spy Kids.
That's what someone else
was my
was saying in the
first
chat.
blood
Yeah,
for him.
yeah.
I remember seeing him like, oh, he's the dad in Spy Kids, and you could just tell he had the way he carried himself. Like, this guy is a legend. This guy must have had a major career, and then I became aware of Zorro and everything. But honestly, I don't think he's ever been better than in Pain and Glory this year. I was completely floored. I saw it.
Oh,
yeah.
you did see it.
Absolutely floored by it. Like,
Awesome.
I didn't even know he was capable of what he did in that movie. But I think it's got to be Zorro.
What kind of it's got to be Zorro for you?
It's got to be Zorro.
What is his thing in Pain and Glory like? What's his character like without spoiling the movie?
He plays a filmmaker. He plays a director who has made a ton of hits, and he's kind of washed up. He's a drug addict. He's addicted to heroin.
Oh, there it is.
And,
That's
he's
it.
coming
That's all
back.
I need to hear.
My one thing about Puss in Boots, though, is Puss in Boots, they're playing off of his Legend of Zorro.
Right.
He is
That's
Zorro.
true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a great point. But you still have to go back and do the work. You know, where it's like Puss in Boots was so in your face for so long.
He has to do the work to be Puss in Boots.
Yeah, he does. That, you know what, you might have won me over. I like that. I like that Puss in Boots is based off of him being Zorro.
I'm pretty sure Antonio Banderas could just like lay naked eating grapes on his couch and do that role without any work.
Yep.
I mean, but that's what happens.
Someone in the chat said earlier that he trained with the like national fencing team of Mexico or something like that.
Sweet.
For I wish I could get it exactly, but he did a bunch of that training because his fencing, you can tell, is really good in this movie.
Doesn't surprise me. Classic actor thing.
Classic actor.
Yeah.
So let's go in here and we'll hop in to production development a little bit. There's a lot actually about this movie. So in August 1994, Sean Connery was cast as Don Diego de la Vega, while Salomon stated that the rest of the major cast would be Hispanic or Latino. And Salomon, for you guys that don't know, is something I also don't. Who is that? Is that the director? Or no, not the director. The producer?
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah. Directors, of course, Martin Campbell. So Connery and Salomon eventually dropped out in September 95. Robert Rodriguez, fresh from the success of Desperado, signed to direct with Antonio Banderas, who had also starred in Desperado, as we all know. But then Rodriguez backed out over difficulties in coming to terms on the budget. Blah, 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 blah. We can skip ahead all of that. The film began in 97. That's when they started shooting with a $60 million budget. The troubled production, though, they had a lot of issues with that. Martin Campbell, the director, he had bronchitis, and that really stalled filming. If you guys know anything about filming, stalling even for a day costs hundreds of thousands or even $1 million sometimes. So troubled production caused the Mask of Zorro to get $10 million over its budget in December. The producers were frustrated by customs agents when the props and the other items, including Zorro's plastic sword, were held for 9 days. During the post-production phase, Spielberg and Campbell decided that Diego de la Vega's death in the arms of his daughter was too depressing. Doesn't he still die in her arms, though, at the end?
He does.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting note, but yeah. So then they ended up with them happily ever after with their infant son. Diego definitely dies, though. That's definitely something that happens. So I'm a little confused by that, but you know, Spielberg having his that's probably why this movie's so good. Spielberg loved it.
Spielberg loved it. Yeah. So we talked about the producers. We talked about the director a little bit. Well, no, we haven't talked about Martin Campbell yet.
Yeah, you talk about Martin Campbell.
We're saving that one, but it is written by Ted Elliott. Ted Elliott, who wrote Aladdin, Shrek, Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, this movie has that feeling. It's a very family friendly, very fun adventure. You know, one thing I had thought about when we talked about segments for this episode to suggest is, I wonder what defines an adventure film. Action, adventure, horror, thriller, these like with the video store, you know, when you see categories on Netflix, you're scrolling, like they're often defined that way with the slash. Adventure and action, they feel like so distinctly different. A lot of adventure movies are action movies, a lot of action movies are adventure movies, but to have them all in sort of one category, like this is so distinctly an adventure movie.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It does not feel like an action movie.
Well, I think the biggest thing about it is that like when you sit there, actually Ryan here says he has clarity on the changed ending. So what's up?
Right, so they actually just didn't have the scene where they were happily married with the infant at the end. So they actually added that 3 months later.
Gotcha.
So it actually just ended with the death of the daughter in his arms.
Got it. Okay. Oh, I think that's maybe better since it is a kids movie. That makes sense.
Right, exactly.
What were you just saying though?
I was talking about action movies versus adventure
yeah,
movies. Because okay, you name movies that feel like adventure movies. I'm just going to throw out 5 at you, right? Okay, The Mummy.
Right.
Clear adventure movie.
Yeah.
This movie, obviously, an adventure movie. Count of Monte Cristo.
Adventure movie. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Adventure movie.
Right.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All adventure.
Right.
Yeah, and then so when you sit, and I think one thing that happened too with this is, especially the more time we spent in the movie trivia space, you know, fantasy, sci-fi, action, adventure, horror, thriller. It's just a lazy thing that video stores used to do.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's really all it is, and it's just lived on forever. Because now that we are in this space where everything is, you can just get it by genre. You can click a genre and go, I want horror, and these are only horror movies. That's what we want now, because calling things action/adventure just does a disservice to both genres, in my opinion, and the movie.
Totally agree. So let's talk Martin Campbell. I think this is kind of a fun director to talk about. He's a director that I think a lot of people are probably not super familiar with in terms of his name. He's just not a guy. Well, he's just not a guy that comes up in people's conversations a lot. But this guy in the 90s was ripping off movie after movie. So his most famous thing in the 90s that he had done prior to this was he did GoldenEye. He did the reboot of James Bond, right? It was a big deal. Everybody got very excited about it.
Yep.
The weird part is he does that. He does this. He does Casino Royale in 2006.
Yes.
Right? It's like a big deal. It reinvents James Bond. It's totally dark. It
So
feels
good.
Nothing like this. It's like a very, very dark take on James Bond, and it's fantastic. He continues on. He ends up doing Green Lantern 2011.
Yes.
Not the best film. I believe he did Vertical Limit back in the late 90s
Yep.
or
He
like
did,
2000 or whatever.
He also did
There's one other significant movie.
another big one. Why did it just disappeared when I was just looking at it? The Foreigner was the one that came out that we covered recently.
That's the recent one that he had done.
that one was not huge though. He also did Edge of Darkness with
with Mel Gibson.
For some reason, I thought he did one other one that I guess not. But he's one of those guys. Like, it's crazy to think that he can do this movie, and he can do Goldeneye, and then he can also do Green Lantern and Casino Royale. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's bizarre.
It's so crazy.
He definitely has a grasp on adventure. It's something that he understands how to do very well. He has a pretty strong grasp on like sexiness. I think that's like pretty clear as well. You know, he does a really good job with both versions of James Bond, the silly campy one in '95. But
It's actually really interesting that he is very good at sexy.
he like understands that vibe and how to do it because both James Bond films achieves like that sex appeal in very different ways, right?
Yes.
There's something sexy and dangerous about James Bond in 2006, the guy dying in the stairwell, in the shower with the blood.
Yep.
Like that's all terrifying, but in this like sexy, exciting, and dangerous way. Goldeneye is like exactly the opposite, but still very appealing. And then this movie is a kids movie, straight down the middle kids movie, and it's extraordinarily sexy. There's nothing sexy about Green Lantern.
Yeah, not at all. Well, no. When he gets killed by Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool 2, or Deadpool, that's sexy.
You just love Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. That's sexy.
I really do. I stand them, as they say, as the kids are saying. So let's get into critical and box office here. This was produced by Sony Productions, or distributed by them and Sony Pictures. It was $95 million budget. It was released on July 17th of 1998. It grossed $94 million domestic and an additional $156 million foreign for a grand total of $250 million, and opened at number one at 22.5. That makes no sense why they would wait 7 years to make the sequel to this movie when it was that successful.
He must have been unavailable, or maybe didn't want to get typecast or something, or maybe they didn't want to pay him as much money because he wasn't white. Who knows? Like, there's a lot of things question marks that I don't know the answers to that really don't make sense. Because you look at that era, you look at 1998, think about the action movies that were coming out around this time, like Independence Day, Men in Black. Like,
and you're not asking Hopkins to come back.
No.
You don't need him. You just need Zeta-Jones and Banderas.
I guess it's not that surprising, because if you think about it, Men in Black didn't make their sequel for 6 years. Right?
Yeah.
They waited 6 years on it.
Maybe that was but that wasn't a huge, Star Wars every 3, like.
Yeah, I guess nowadays there's so much less guarantee on these actors doing like original films, starting original franchises, that if you nowadays you schedule it so it's like, okay, if we make a successful one, you can bet your ass we're gonna make another one 2 or 3 years later, because if this movie made money, like any leading actor would be an idiot to turn down the sequel, because movies flop all the time. There's no guarantee anymore. So I guess like nowadays, if the same exact thing happened, they would absolutely make this.
Whereas back then it was like, I'm fine. I'm gonna make.
I'll go make the 13th Warrior. It'll be successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
6.7 on IMDb. It's got an 82% on the tomato meter and a 72 by audience. Phenomenal. Usually not what I like to see when the audience likes it less than the critics, but I'm okay with it this time. And let's get into our next segment of favorite line.
Yeah, favorite line. So this is there's several in the film that I like a lot, and the one for me, I think that I don't know why, it just kind of wrapped the story up. It's actually in that final scene. It's in the final scene, and Antonio Banderas says,
Many men have been Zorro, but they've all loved you.
I was like, that's pretty good.
That's a good line.
It's not even creepy at all, and it's totally accurate. So
Yeah.
there's two people, and they both loved you.
That is a really good line. I think I had a few of them. I do love the one in the very beginning when they're in the prison and he's looking for Don. I can't remember the bad guy's name. Don Raphael's looking for Zorro, for Anthony Hopkins, and everyone's like, I'm Zorro. And he's like, you fool, I am Zorro. It's like this big black guy. And I love the response. He goes, liar, anyone can see that you're too tall. And I was like, all right, that's funny enough. Like, that's clever enough. Like, you didn't hit it on the head. You did the bait and switch. But then the other line that I really liked was it's the whole exchange between them in the bar, or like the cantina, the first time they meet.
Yeah.
And Anthony Hopkins is wasted, Antonio is wasted, and he's like wanting to fight. and there's a handful of lines. So he's like, Anthony Hopkins goes, "You're welcome." He says, "For what?" And he says, "For saving your life." That's how it kind of starts. And then he's like, "You would have fought very bravely and died very quickly."
Yeah,
I like that
that's a
line.
good line.
It's a really good
I
line.
agree.
And then he responds. He goes, "I would have found a way. I've never lost a fight." And he goes, "Except to a crippled man just now." And I was like, God, this is Anthony Hopkins. You're amazing.
Why is he crippled?
I don't think he actually is. I think he's just
Pretending?
That's just it's
It's
just
a
like his
shtick.
shtick.
Interesting.
With a literal shtick.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was because he blew the shackle off his ankle or something.
Yeah, I don't think he's actually crippled.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins would never allow himself.
He would never. He would just only fake being crippled. So yeah, those are my favorite lines. Do you remember the moment when him and the captain are fighting in the hallway and they like touch swords and Antonio Banderas is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
remember that?
No.
As a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like the sword touch, like the tips touch. And he's like, like they're hot.
Yeah.
So
if somebody
cool.
can clip out that Andrew saying when the tips touch, it's hot.
It's cool, and then making that face.
It's 10 seconds. That's a good gift.
It's a good gift. Let's move on. Let's move on.
So,
let's move on to the show.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, we have a couple last shout outs to do before we get to the next part of the show, which is pretty hilarious. We have a couple things to do. First one is we want to give a big shout out to Joaquin Oliveira, who is a longtime supporter. He's been a member of the Patreon, and he wanted to send us a gift to get us excited about films that he loves.
Yeah.
And so he sent us these two films. I've got Karen Diru, a film by Hector Babenco.
I'm very happy you have that one because I have Elite Squad and I know how to say that. But this is from the writer of City of God, which you and I both really love.
Great
City
movie.
of God. And thanks, man. Thanks for sharing these with us. I actually love having DVDs, like physical copies of DVDs. So these are a great addition, and we really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Andrew has a DVD player still. I don't.
I do.
So
I do
we
still
will
have
watch these together at his home.
Yes.
And I can't wait because I love learning about movies that I don't know about, and it's very generous of you to share that with us. So thank you so much, man. We
Big salute
appreciate
to you,
all the
man.
support. Big salute to you. There are 3 action movie categories to do, and we're going to get there in just one second. But before we do, I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about our new show. Because
Yes.
we announced it last week that we were doing it, and some of you guys probably have already watched it. The Action Guys was a show that previously we used to do over on Collider. It was a podcast we did on the Collider Podcast Network, and we decided to move on from that version of the show, and we transitioned it over to our own YouTube channel, which is Action Industries, youtube.com/Action Industries. Every single Sunday night, we stream the show at 5:30 p.m. It's a 2-hour live streaming show, and every week is going to have like a main topic. We're going to try to have guests, do call-ins. This last week, the first episode was our top 10 movies of 2019 episode with Mark Riley, who is one of our longtime buddies. He's my partner in the Movie Trivia Schmodown. It was an awesome episode. We had so much fun. There was incredible support. We had hundreds of people watching it live.
even with the playoff game going on and the SAG Awards going on, we had hundreds of people watching. We've already got like 330 people that have thumbs up and thousands of people that have watched it, which is really, really great. We're really excited to start this new show, and we actually thought we'd give you guys a little taste of the show because we did our top 10 that are officially on our list, but there were definitely honorable mentions, and we want to talk about just a couple movies that barely missed for us.
Barely missed because it was tough to make that decision. It was really tough to make that decision, but in the end, we decided we couldn't quite get these in the top 10, and so we're each gonna do 2 movies that were just barely outside. You want to start or should I?
I'm gonna start, and I'm honestly just gonna say Harriet. I really am, and it would have actually been in my top 10 had I seen it, and I feel pretty bummed out that I wasn't able to put it on the list. I would have loved to put it in maybe 7th spot.
Yeah,
because even if I enjoyed watching maybe 9th or 10th place more, I think that Harriet is more important, and I think that the performance that she gave is like one for the ages. So I'm going to go ahead and just say Harriet is one of my honorable mentions. I really, really enjoyed watching it. And you definitely get some of it when you're watching, you're like, I wonder how Hollywoodized this really is. Because there's many cliche, as horrible as this might say, when you watch films about slavery, there are cliche characters and cliche moments that happen almost every single time. And it's not cliche, it's just what happened. It's horrible. But you're watching it and you wonder like, okay, is this added in or is this true? But at the same time, the stuff that you know is true is still more than enough to carry you into this. Like I walked away from that movie going, I was just like, I felt good. Like, I felt great.
That's
after
awesome.
Watching it.
No, I'm excited to watch that one. I think, generally speaking, the studio that released Harriet, I'm trying to remember, but I looked at one point, and that studio tends to have a deal with HBO. Those movies end up on airplanes. I fly a lot. I will watch this on an airplane as soon as it's available to me. So I'll have one of my 2 that didn't make it, and this is a surprising one that didn't make my top 10 because it made a lot of people's top 10. That's Little Women. This was like the hot take for me. I loved this movie. I thought it was so good. Honestly, I kept almost putting it in, and then I kept thinking about it and being like, but ultimately I loved parts of this movie and I loved a lot of this movie, but I didn't love everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find myself thinking, given the opportunity, I want to rewatch this. I would like to watch this again. It was like I was surprised almost that I liked it as much as I did. And I think it's gotten a lot of love from a lot of people for good reason. It has great performances. The writing is fantastic. The structure is great. It's obviously got an incredibly stacked cast. There's some characters in this movie that I really love. One of the actors who shows up in Little Women that I especially love.
Henry Ford?
No.
Oh.
He's great. The guy that plays Henry Ford in Ford Ferrari. He's terrific. But the guy that shows up in this movie that I hadn't seen in something in a little bit that I loved is Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper's in this movie. Obviously, all the stars that you see on the cover, they're all fantastic. He's not really advertised or publicized in this movie, and he plays an older character. But I loved him in this movie. I really did. He was really, really sweet and quiet, and he's one of the greatest actors of our generation.
I love when Cooper plays like a sweet guy.
Right.
Because
he's so good at playing an asshole.
Yes.
He's so good
But
at
then
it.
when he's nice, he's so good at that too.
Yeah.
So I think what I will do for my last one, or my second one, since we're only doing two, is oh God, there's so many. I don't even know. I think I go with Instant Family.
Movie was great.
Instant Family and Fighting with My Family are two movies that I really, really loved, and they were both so very close to making my top 10. But there was something about them that it just wasn't quite there. It missed just a little bit for me in the sense of feeling completely genuine. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they felt like a little too, even though they definitely have their moments in them, they just feel a little too like kind of happy-go-lucky. But I don't know. I don't know if that's just me, but I loved both those movies and I can't wait to watch them again.
Instant Family has a ton of great moments. I was surprised at how much I liked this movie. People say movies that make you cry on airplanes, it's easier to cry on airplanes. I've heard this before.
So interesting.
But this movie made me cry on an airplane.
Yeah. I teared up for
it
sure.
Totally did. It has a lot of moments that I really like. I am obsessed with Rose Byrne.
She's amazing.
I cannot tell you how obsessed I am with her because
Because of Spy.
every movie she shows up in,
She's phenomenal.
I'm amazed at how funny she is, how like A-type and like annoying she can be if she wants to be, how like sexy she's able to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like she fits and checks so many Hollywood boxes, right? She's so good at playing the concerned wife.
Mm-hmm.
She's so good at playing like Raina in Spy. She's like the sexy, whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to
heiress,
call her, evil heiress,
something. She's just generally funny. I just saw her in Like a Boss, the movie with her and Tiffany Haddish, and she's really funny.
Really?
Like she's just really genuinely incredible. It's a big salute to her.
She's a great actress. I know another movie someone, Dan V900 just mentioned here. He says The Mustang is the most underrated movie of the year. Honestly, we both loved that movie.
Yeah, so the Mustang actually is one of the three that I have written here, and just because you shouted it out, I'll go with my other one. I love the Mustang. When I saw it back in January, it was my favorite movie of the year, and I interviewed the cast, the director, and I really enjoyed that. But the answer for me is the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh, that was gonna be the long shot. I didn't know we were gonna do three.
No, I didn't do a second one. I just did Little Women.
You just did two. Oh, okay.
I did Little Women. They did Mustang.
Yeah, right. Got
You
it.
did Little Instant Family.
I did Instant Family.
Yes. The Peanut Butter Falcon. This was a movie.
So good.
This was a movie that was kind of like a little engine that could movie that a lot of people, and I honestly think that this is funny, but this is true. So I was going to go see this movie back at a screening like 3-4 months ago. And I remember I texted Roxy Stryer. I was like, hey, I'm going to the screening. And she was like, oh, I didn't see the invite. Let me see if I can make this one work. And she was like, yeah, I'm gonna go. So she shows up and we sit down, we watch this movie. Both of us walk out of it. Love the movie.
Is it her number one?
Or
no, was it?
But she loved it.
Okay.
She really loved it.
Okay.
And so that night, Roxy streams because she does her own streams on YouTube. And in her chat is Tyler Nilson, the director. Because this was a movie that no one was talking about yet.
Yes.
And he jumps in her chat and he's like, hey, Roxy, big fan. So she ends up bringing the directors and the writers onto her shows over on Collider. She's tweeting about it, talking about it all the time. And so many people in our space start talking about this movie. And so many people have referenced Roxy Stryer as the person they've heard about this movie from because she championed the crap out of it.
That's so crazy.
And
That's
I've seen
awesome.
so many people talk about this movie. It made a lot of money and was really great. And I got to say, guys,
it's in my top 10.
it's a heartwarming movie. Zach Gottsagen is, he's a breakout star from this movie. He's unbelievable. Obviously, the supporting cast, then Dakota Johnson, Bruce Dern, Thomas Hayden Church.
We love anything Shia does.
Yeah, and Shia is phenomenal in the movie.
He's so good.
Yeah.
We've always said that though. We've always said he's a great actor that just there's like this weird thing with people like not loving him that much.
Yeah. So guys, those are going to be our honorable mentions that didn't quite make our top 10s. If you want to see our top 10s, go check out Action Industries. It is the Action Guys that just posted this last Sunday, and Andrew and I will be streaming a special edition episode because we're actually in New York this weekend for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. Andrew is playing in a match this weekend. He's fighting against
former manager RMB.
Yeah, the Robert Meyer Burnett, and that is at my behest because I decided on this match after I beat you in Houston. I elected to have you play Robert Meyer Burnett. Don't you say it.
I'm not going to say
nothing
anything
about the digital
It
wheel.
was all about the digital wheel, but it's fine because this is good. This is good. I'm actually looking forward to this, and I actually appreciate you putting me in a good position to shine because I've only played people that are champions before.
Yeah.
And this guy's an IG champion, so you're going to keep the run
He's a
going.
former
5
IG
champions in a
champ.
row. 5 champions in a row,
Keep telling
baby.
yourself he's a champion.
I will.
But anyway, guys, if you're fans of action, if you're fans of the Schmodown and you've never met us and you want to be a part of it, go get yourself a ticket right now. TheSchmodownLive.com. You can go buy a ticket and you can go and check out the show. Drew and I will be there. We like to meet everybody and hang out afterwards. So go get your tickets now. You can see us in New York. There's one last thing left to do on the show.
Well, really quick, we're doing that show on Saturday. Saturday at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Sunday?
Or Sunday, yeah, Sunday. Saturday's the show. We're doing it Sunday at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, because we're going to be on East Coast time. We have to catch flights out. So make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss us. That's going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah, we'll be recapping the event and everything like that. So there's one last thing to do here, and it's called The Pitch. Oh, you know what?
We didn't do the 3 categories.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This movie's awesome.
It is. What was that?
It was another sound effect. It was a great one. I will tell you, there was something about this movie. I wish I'd brought this up, and I'm just going to... Ryan, do we have 3 minutes right now?
Yeah.
Okay. When the movie starts, and you see him walk to the center of the screen.
Oh.
And you're like, this is so cheesy. What is about to happen? And he's like, he starts cutting, and they start cutting. And you're like, okay. And there's an explosion. And I swear to God, that explosion and the one later when the mine explodes.
There's the Wilhelm scream.
Is that what it is?
The panther.
The panther growl. It is,
Yes,
right?
it's in there.
I was like,
it's 100%.
I heard it the first time, and I was like, did I just imagine that? I was like, there's no way that's real. There was actually the panther scream. And then at the end, when it does it again.
It does.
It's real. You can hear the
so
panther.
loud. It's so it's truly just a panther roaring and then explosion sounds at the end. I'm actually so happy you mentioned that because I noticed it.
Yeah.
It hit me in the face.
In the face. Yeah. Okay. So the pitch is this. We come up with a movie we're doing on the show next week. So here's the effed up thing, guys. I'll be in Germany next week.
Yep.
Drew will be doing the show without me on Wednesday. We have to figure out the movie and the guest, and it'll be probably determined on what we figure out after the show today. So
yeah, because the biggest thing for us is, as you guys know, we want to make sure that the guest is talking about a movie that they love. So we have to reach out to people, talk to guests about what movies they want. And the problem is we've covered 200 plus movies on the show, so there's usually like no movies that we haven't done that people love. So we will figure it out. We'll let you guys know. Make sure to follow us on Twitter to get updated.
yeah, at Action Industries, at Team Action Show. Those are all the socials you guys can find there. Couple quick shout outs to people that need to hear their names in print because they deserve it.
Yes,
and
they
that
do.
is going to be general shout outs for Andrew Hayes, John Patterson, Jake Iacovetta, Kelsey. Wait, this is the wrong list. You have the list.
Yeah,
this
this
is
should
the
be
old,
the-
this
well,
is the old
actually-
outline, right? Does it have all
There's
the...
so many. I got it right here. We're good. We're doing real good today. Right, Ryan? Did you just laugh at us?
That was
I'm pretty sure you did. Okay, here we go. So Andrew Hayes, John Patterson, Kelsey Kirkland, Jeremiah Morris, Cody Seal, AJ Lancaster, Sadi Lamanmaki, Oscar Romo, Danny Joyce, Eric Ritz, Luke Haynes, Michael Deacon, and Liam Gilpin. Big shout out to you, generals. Big salute to you. And we have our 5-star generals in the Army: Jake Iacovetta, Mac Ryan, John Getz, Lucas Shawshek, Alex McFarland, and of course, Paul Denuzio.
Guys, we love you. We love the support. It helps us keep going. It is the best thing in the world for us, and we can never thank you enough. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. He'll see you next week. We'll see you in New York.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.